You're here because you want an undervalued microcap cryptocurrency that can return 100x gains in 2025. And yes, I do have answers for you today. So stay tuned for that. You're going to want to hear me out. And I think this is going to be a really interesting video. So first of all, what is the project? Well, it's called Cypherium. Ticker is CPH. And yes, it's a microcap. Right now, it's about $32.5 million. So extremely low and huge upside. So what is Cypherium? Well, Cypherium is a project focusing on CBDC development. So that's central bank digital currencies. And that's pretty much their main focus right now, right? It's facilitating this highway of interoperability between, enterprise banks or corporate banks and also the future centralized banks of entire nations, right? And it's kind of like that interoperability solution, right? It sits in the middle of all of this and facilitates these transactions. And actually, some of the features of the network itself is specifically catered to ensure that AML laws, which is anti-money laundering, and KYC, which is know your customer laws, are all implemented and can be adjusted per central bank or per corporate bank. So it's extremely tailored towards where the world is going. And let's face it, guys, whether you like them or you hate them, CBDCs are coming into the world. I'm personally someone who is strongly against CBDCs. I want to say for the record, however, their impending doom is inevitable, and I think if you're able to position yourself in a spot where you can take advantage of that, i.e. make some money back and hopefully break away from that future cycle, then hey, more power to you, and that's kind of where I'm trying to head with this, okay? So let's move into this project, right, and kind of why it's such a low market cap, yet so promising in my eyes. Well, we'll start with the tech. The tech, I don't want to go too deep into it because I am actually creating a whole new deep dive video where I do go a little bit into the tech because I know some of you guys, or most of you guys, don't want to hear that crap. But I do go more into the ecosystem concerns and also partners, as well as the fundamentals in that video. So that'll be out in about a week. So I'm just going to give you the TLDR on all this sort of stuff right now, okay? So technically, the protocol is a blockchain, right? It's the DLT we all know and love, blockchain, right? Well, while it forms one blockchain, technically speaking, it actually has two so-called chains within it. Now, they are still obviously creating the one chain, as I said, the one blockchain, but one chain, they each kind of have their own consensus algorithm. So first and foremost, the main one is proof of work, right? So that's kind of like the same as Bitcoin, okay? The other chain runs what's called hot stuff. Now, this hot stuff algorithm hasn't really been implemented into a decentralized network as effectively as it has been in Cypherium. So I want to make that very clear. I think it was in Facebook's Libra coin, and that kind of flopped and failed because it was quite centralized. So the founder of Cypherium, Sky, he's actually close friends with the creator of hot stuff, so they kind of work together to bring this to life. Anyway, I'm kind of waffling here. What the kind of hybrid system, between the proof of work and the hot stuff algorithm is, it's called Cypher BFT, which is novel to Cypherium, right? Cypherium created it, and it's the only one has implemented Cypher BFT. So without going into details, essentially what happens in the proof of work system, there's a group of committee members, right? There's 21 committee members. That's the max amount of committee members there is allowed to be at any one time. And within that committee, there is one so-called crown node that produces the blocks for the blockchain. Okay, so it's literally like what we find with proof of stake networks, where there's an algorithm typically that picks out certain members based on probably their stake, right, in a proof of stake network, and then at random, and then they are the committee for a specific round, and it's always swapped per epoch, right? So it's the same here, except this committee isn't elected by the network. They have to solve problems with their proof of work, right, through computational work to be elected or to kind of fight for the position to be in the committee. Now, the committee obviously is swapped in and out, and because that spot is so fiercely competitive, right, you're always going to have a spot to be filled every time someone leaves or, whatever reason they're slashed and have to get pushed out, okay? So that's kind of the TLDR on the network. So I wanted to make that clear just so you guys have an idea of how it works. Now, what are the sort of numbers we're talking about here? Well, that's 10,000 TPS, right? Yes, I know, not like the cutting edge of what so-called other networks can produce. However, we are talking about finality at 90 milliseconds. Yes, 90 milliseconds, okay? So that's pretty much the equivalent of a network doing like 1 million TPS and pushing a minute finality, which is still quite fast, right? Because you think about it, if you push a transaction through to the network and it has pretty much instant finality, right, it's done, right? It's just the next ones can go through, no worries. Whereas if you have a network pushing 100, a million TPS with a minute finality, it's not as efficient, I would dare say, okay? So there's a huge bonus there, right? Still faster than MasterCard, Visa, so on and so forth. Now, in saying that, it does get better. The security on the network is more than what we find in both proof of work and proof of stake networks. Proof of work, typically 51% secure, right? Proof of stake, typically 33%. While these guys have said, F you, we're going to do 66%. Don't ask me how, okay, because I haven't done a deep dive into that part of the technicals, but nevertheless, 66% or more or less of the network can be actively trying to take it down, and Cypherium keeps running, which is just unheard of, literally unheard of. Typically asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerant, which is about 33%, continuously trying to take the network down, is considered extremely good. So you guys can imagine double that must be pretty insane, which it is, right? Not to mention smart contracts as well. So smart contracts can be written in the most popular language in the world, Java. Plus, the contracts can actually run on devices like mobile phones, tablets, and all those sort of small, not as computational capable sort of devices, right? The really, really cool thing about smart contracts as well is that they're EVM compatible, which I think needs to be an ongoing theme with sort of up and coming networks. They need to be EVM compatible because that's probably going to be the main framework, at least for the next 5 to 10 plus years, okay? So because Cypherium is so heavily involved in CBDCs, they've actually also created the DCIF, or Digital Currency Interoperability Framework, which pretty much is that sort of system that allows for those AML, so anti-money laundering, and KYC, know your customer laws, to be implemented for corporate and even national banks, right? So when these CBDCs come about, obviously different banks and different sort of nations are going to have different KYC laws or different AML laws, so they can tweak these through the DCIF, which is really, really cool. Now the DCIF, to make this all happen, actually has 4 different modules. There's the Cypherium ID, which is like the ID, the DID side of things, Cypherium Validator, Cypherium Connect, and CypherLink. Now, CypherLink probably is the first and foremost most powerful part of this. It pretty much facilitates the transactions and all of the such, okay? Now, before we move on, I want to say Cypherium is enterprise grade, which means, yes, you might have guessed it already, it's got a private and public version of the network as well, which is fantastic to see, and probably pretty beneficial for, nations wanting to run their CBDC implementations through. And also, but most and foremost, it is the interoperability framework for all these, okay? So again, love them, you hate them. CBDs are coming, and I think kind of hedging our bets on a project as small as Cypherium could yield high returns, for the, I'm just going to call it incoming or pending doom, right? So if you don't know about CBDCs, you do more research, okay? So we've pretty much talked about the use cases, but I do want to say that, look, at the same time, I think putting all their eggs in the CBDC basket can be a bit dangerous. They do have this so-called decentralized application environment, or the smart contract environment that I was telling you just moments ago, which is good, right? Because technically it is a blockchain. It does have an application layer, which is good to see. But right now it's kind of lacking, right? They're putting all their eggs into the CBDC basket. Skygu, which is the founder of Cypherium, he's kind of trying to talk and put himself out there as much as possible, and next to sort of like the giants in the enterprise world relating to banks and also nations, okay? Which is good, of course, but we're kind of seeing right now with the application environment, as far as I could find, there was only one project building on Cypherium, or built on Cypherium. That's CipherSwap. That's a DEX, like an AMM DEX, right? That's the exact same, in my eyes, as Uniswap, okay? It doesn't really offer many other features. They do obviously have these grand ideas for what CipherSwap will become, but right now I believe it is simply just similar to a Uniswap implementation. Might even be V2, not even V3, okay? So I want to make that very, very clear. Right now, they are heavily focused on CBDC development, and everything else has taken the back burner, okay? So one thing I wanted to say, yes, while all this is promising, they do have some transparency issues, right? First and foremost, and I suggest you watch my video on this coming out in a week or two, their partnerships, right? I go into a lot more depth, but basically they have partners on their website, Amazon Web Service, Microsoft Azure, they have DMI, they have, who else? Google Cloud. They have a lot of other projects that they have so-called partnered with, but from what I've found, the partnerships have dissolved since, and they've left the partners on the website, or I couldn't literally find any information relating to a partnership at all, okay? And yes, I've been in contact with the team because I hate saying this sort of stuff and potentially being incorrect, or there might be NDA agreements involved. And you'll find with lots of projects saying that they're partnering with someone or have partnered with someone that there is an NDA agreement sort of murmuring around. We can't take any of that as facts, guys. If we're kind of putting all of our hope into a potential whisper of an NDA, that is one way to lose your money, and that is not a good investor. That is not what a good investor does at all, okay? So I want to make that very clear right now. As far as I'm concerned, they do have up in the air partnerships that are so-called under an NDA, or as far as the public's concerned, don't currently exist, okay? And it doesn't quite stop at the partners, right? You know how I said they're sort of predominantly focusing on CBDCs, and right now everything's sort of in the dust, put behind them? Well, that's the same as well with the tokenomics, right? They have probably one of, and I'm saying this with all due respect, I know a lot of Cypherium fans are going to be watching this, as well as maybe even the team themselves. So there's all due respect, probably one of the worst tokenomics I've ever seen in my life. There's old data from 2-3 years ago that is still surfacing. That's pretty much their main sort of information regarding the tokenomics. There's also new information that even the team members don't quite fully understand themselves. And then these sort of sheets, the distribution sheets and the vesting, if you want to kind of loosely use that term in this case, sheets are all very, very vague, right? So I want to say that for the record, they do have horrible tokenomics. So look, while this project is highly promising, they do have a large chunk of what I look at as an investor pulling up huge red flags, okay? That is not to say that the project isn't on the right path. It just simply means that for the community right now, it's lacking, okay? And that can either mean that, the protocol is going down the drain, it's looking really, really bad, or it could mean they are hyper focused on serving enterprise partners, or in this case, entire nations. Honestly, guys, what's a small little community going to do to them? Okay, not much, when they could potentially have billions, if not trillions of transactions and volume being processed every single day in a few years, okay? Because I'd probably say 2025, 2027, between that range is when all this will kind of start becoming online, all right? So in saying that, what is sort of my idea for a price prediction coming to 2025? Well, as I said to you a second ago, the vesting schedule is pretty much non-existent. So I can't tell you for certain what the supply side of this is going to look like, right? Because right now there's about 6% of the entire tokens in circulation, about 540 million tokens, and there is set to be, when it's all in circulation, 8.4 or thereabout billion tokens. So again, 6% is currently in circulation. And look, while a steady, 5% year on year is going to be coming out soon for the miners, that is still a large amount, still to be diluted, okay? So keep that in mind, guys. However, for demand, because the market cap is only $32 million right now, I can pretty much confidently say, if we hear wind that any nation or any central bank or any corporate bank is working with these guys on an actual intimate level, and we kind of had heard, murmurs of this with the MOU, which is pretty much like the step in the door version for a contract with a large Chinese CBDC city. Then once these start coming online and are actually verified, not just an MOU, then we can kind of confidently say, hey, right, maybe this actually is a good investment, and kind of hedging in regards to a CBDC project, investable money you're able to lose into Cypherium might be a good option, okay? But for now, it's not. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is I think demand will definitely increase if we see some of these guys go online. 2, I'm pretty well confident saying $3.2 billion. Let's just say a nice 100x, okay? That doesn't actually mean that the price will 100x. I want to say, again, supply plays a factor in this. Because I don't know the supply, I'm going to say probably around a 70 to 100x for the next bull market. Now, I know some of you guys out there probably have, opposite views, right? You're going to have Cypherium guys saying it's going to do more than that. You're going to have average guys or, people that are are critics or that are just looking at the information like I am saying, hell no. But I want to let both of you know that memetics is extremely powerful. That's why we see, projects like Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, all the bloody Comrocket coins, the Elon coins, they have no utility and they shoot up in price. I mean, look at every other crypto YouTuber out there. They pretty much base one bit of, token utility to a guaranteed return. That's because they're kind of right? Projects don't need much to skyrocket because the market is made up of degens. So as long as a project like Cypherium can say, hey, we're working with CBDCs, hey, we so-called have our foot in the door with all these partners that might not actually be real, it's going to attract most people. Therefore, the price will go up unless there is a confirmation of extremely negative news and unless they break the trust of even the evangelists. Well, guess what, guys? I think that memetics will push this project up quite significantly. And in my eyes, that's kind of my overall opinion, right? I'd probably say between a 70 to 100x the next bull market, unless there is some pretty bad news to come out. As for the longevity of Cypherium, I think after 2025, once that market recedes, I believe it will entirely depend on what they've done in between now and then. And in my opinion, based on what I've seen so far, it is not looking too good. So again, when I see a few green flags come out and until I'm proven wrong, again, it's just like trading. You pretty much you set a certain price level. Unless it's broken, you stick to it. If it's broken, you reevaluate. Same thing in this case. If they can confirm some partners, if they can look at fixing up the tokenomics and fixing even simple things like a lot of spelling mistakes, I'm going to feel a lot more confident in the team and in the project in general, okay? So with that being said, guys, take your picks, hedge with or against CBDCs, and just remember, be very, very careful in microcap projects and what they say on their website. Until then, guys, I wish you all the best in your investment journey. Until the next video, take care.